So it's time for a little takeaway video from my sketching, drawing, painting project. 1 month ago, I started with my hypothesis is this. I believe that you can learn a new skill in just 1 minute per day. I know for a fact that you can do it with 15 minutes because I've done it for 6 years now continuously. But how low can you go? I want to find out if it indeed is possible to learn a new skill in just 1 minute per day. So I thought I have to find out. And I did not want to choose to learn to play a new instrument because of course I'm going to do it. And then everybody's just going to say, yeah, you're so musical, so it's no wonder you can learn a new musical instrument in a month or in a year or whatever with just a minute a day. So I carefully chose sketching, drawing, painting, because this is a skill that I have absolutely zero experience in. I've done nothing. Not since everybody had the art subject when we went to school, but I mean, that's like, it's more than 20 years ago and I haven't done any serious painting since then. Nothing. So I thought that would be the perfect one, because then I really start from scratch with nothing to build on. In that specific domain, that is, of course. And now I've been doing it 1 minute every day. I use a timer, so make sure I don't cheat. I do 1 minute, no more, no less. And usually I always do like this, that I think you should set a lower limit to practice at least this amount of time every day. You can never go below that limit. But if you want to, if you feel the flow, you can increase it. But this project is a bit different because now I also set an upper limit. So when I reach 1 minute, it's over. And the point here is that by doing this, your mind enters a different state. Because I actually have a little list here with the things that I've learned this past month. So I'm going to give you the takeaways here. There are several things that I've learned just by doing it 1 minute a day. And I mean, when you have the timer, the upper limit of 60 seconds, and you start the timer, and you look at an object, let's say you look at this one, you have to capture the important detail, the important contour. So what is it that makes this candle look like a candle? Yeah, well, maybe you shouldn't spend too much time on drawing every single little detail up here or the reflections here, but you need to get this circle, this shape, and I mean the big ones. And maybe you can color it gray, the bottom part. I mean, we're talking really basic stuff here. You have to get those things down. Everything else is just a bonus if you have some time over, but usually you just barely able to finish it in the given time. But here's some similarities between music and drawing, because if you've ever tried to learn, if you've done a gig like a troubadour or at a wedding or something, maybe you need to learn 20, 30 songs in a rather short amount of time. And this is the same thing. You cannot learn every single drum hit on every fill or every little lick in the solo perfectly if you're going to learn 30 songs in 2 weeks or maybe 1 week. You have to get the big picture, the stuff that you can recognize. Okay, this is the song, now I know which song it is. And then if you play a similar but completely different solo, it doesn't matter. You just have to get the big ones down. So that's something I really learned. The second one, perspective. That is something I was not aware of at all, because I've been doing like this in the spur of the moment. I just grab a random thing that I see and I make a drawing of it in 60 seconds. It could be, today I want to make a drawing of this one. But what happens when you put this one in front of you and you start to make a sketch? When you move your head, the perspective on this one changes, and it looks completely different depending on which angle you look at it from, your viewpoint. So it was at least the first 2 weeks. I wasn't aware of this, but I could see that it didn't correlate. My image that I produced looked like it was taken from a different viewpoint or a different perspective than what I was actually looking at. So what I then started to do is that let's say 2 weeks in, I started to make all the drawings on this iPad Pro with the Apple Pencil. So at first I just had it like this on the table, and I did the painting. But then I angled it towards me like this, so I had the same angle of incidence from my eyes and the viewpoint as to the object that I was making. And this made a huge improvement because, well, I photographed the object and I photographed my painting. And when I moved the camera around, that's how I actually noticed it. Wait a minute, this looks like I've been painting it from this direction. So when I then put it like this, and then I moved the camera in relation to the iPad, and I could get a better correlation with the actual object. So this little change to angle it in the right direction made a huge difference for me. And then this is something that I then noticed now in the later images, the very last days, is that I did one with a crazy whale that is coming with the teeth like this from one of my son's books. And then when you paint a flat image, the challenge of perspective and viewpoint is eliminated, and it's another challenge that you're faced with. Then you try to replicate what you see. So there's two different things to practice. I was not aware of either of these when I started this challenge a month ago. So if I were to paint, let's say I just grab like this magazine and I want to paint some of the cars. Let's say I want to paint this Alfa Romeo car here. This one looks the same, even if I tilt the newspaper. So this is a bit easier problem. Or I could paint a landscape, because if you paint something that is on the horizon 3 kilometers away, it doesn't matter if you move your head. It's still gonna look the same because the distance is so great. So that's something I could try as well. So we'll see. Maybe I'll end up doing some kind of theme every month. That wouldn't surprise me, because now I had this last month. The theme was just grab an object and paint it. Maybe next month I could do something like this, that I practice to paint pictures. I take a photograph and then I make a painting of the photograph. Or I take a book or a magazine or an image or something and I paint it. So that's another skill. And then yesterday, when I did my first milestone painting, that every month, every 30 days or 31 days, I will put away my timer and just paint with the flow. I as long as I'm having fun and I'm feeling it, I'm gonna keep painting. So I took a walk, and I found this old abandoned car. Let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, this one. And this one caught my attention because it's an interesting view. I mean, it's kind of strange to see a car out there in the forest like this. So it's a story here. I mean, why is there a car there? Who left it? How long has it been here? Someone bought this car a long time ago, and we're probably really proud of it, that I've got a new car. It smells new from the factory, and you know that feeling. And now it's ended up like this. So when you have a good view that you're gonna make a painting of, if you have something interesting, I think it's gonna be easier to create nice art. If I just take something really boring and try to replicate this one for let's say an hour, it's not that exciting. It doesn't speak to me, at least. But this one was very interesting. And I think this is similar to if you play music. If you play a good piece of music, it doesn't matter that much the technical skill of the performer. If you play some Mozart or Beethoven, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be a beautiful song, regardless of your skill level. Of course, you have to have some kind of skill level so you can at least hear what it's supposed to be like. But you know this thing, if you go and look at the YouTube guitarists, there are guys that are insanely talented with skill, but it's completely uninteresting. There's no emotion whatsoever in what they produce. It sounds like they're doing a technical exercise. It's not music. And this is the same with art when you're painting. I mean, I'm quite a fresh painter because my total time now, up until this one, is 90 minutes. I painted 31-minute sessions, and the 31st one was 60 minutes. So it's 90 minutes of practice time in total with a pen in my hand. But by selecting an interesting motif, an interesting view there in the forest with a car, I can get away with it. So that's an interesting thing to think about. And then the next one is the spur of the moment. It's very important. Don't plan it. Don't overthink it. Because this is something that I've learned from my vlogs. And I've been doing those I've got a couple of hundred vlogs by now. I'm approaching 300. And what I have learned from those, and it's the same lesson that I apply here with the painting. Don't plan it. I never plan the paintings, the 1-minute sessions. I just grab something and I draw it. 1 minute, no more, no less. And it's like, it should require no serious thought at all. You just grab something and go. That's it. And also with this 60-minute session, I was thinking, well, what should I paint? What are the rules and stuff like that? But then I just took a walk. Oh, here's a car. Let's do it. And then I went home and I just painted it. No thoughts. So that's a useful thing to do, because then if you can enter like this trance-like state of mind where when I was doing this car, it was like time itself stopped existing. I was just painting, and then, yeah, now I'm finished. Oh, an hour has passed. And I think I've been listening to this Your Mind is Trying to Kill You podcast now, and I really love the discussions in there with Alexandros Megas and Vincent Byrne, where they talk about hypnosis. And now I start to understand what they mean with hypnosis, is with a trance. When you enter this state of mind where you're so in it, you're so in the zone that the rest of the world ceases to exist. And yesterday I had an hour of trance when I did this painting. And the same thing happens when I do the 1-minute sessions. That's the beauty of it. I'm so focused that everything else just gone. It's only me and the task at hand. And this means that in this 1 minute, maybe I can get a whole hour of value out of it, because I am so hyper focused during this little time. And I have 90 minutes of actual time with a pen in my hand. But the thing is, my argument is this, that it's not how long you do it, it's how often you do it. Quantity beats quality here. If you want to learn to paint, What do you think are gonna be a better painter, a better artist? If you practice 1 minute 30 times, 30 days, or if you sit down with a timer for 30 minutes once in a month, which one of these two do you think is going to produce a better payback after a month? For me, it's quite obvious that it's the number of times. When you start with a cold engine and you have to do a cold start every time, that's when you raise your lowest level. And I think that's what really matters here. Because what also happens when you do it so often, like I do every single day, is that there's not much time doing the actual painting, but there's a lot of thinking going on in between the sessions. Now, I mean, I'm starting to see things all over the place. Now, when I look at things, when I go and I have lunch, I can sit there and just look at the knife, or I can just look at the plate, and I can just look at a tree, or I can look at a car, and okay, so those are the lines. If I were to paint this one, I would choose those lines. And it goes on all the time because I'm constantly engaging my mind again and again and again. And I think during this time, with all this mind conditioning going on, that's what's moving you forward to your target. And that's what results in real growth. And another thing is the teamwork. I mean, when I do this publishing, I get a comment here and a comment there, and it was like with this car image was my friend Martin German, who just jokingly kind of made a comment, we should do pastel. Yeah, pastel, that would be cool. I've never done a pastel before, so let's try it. So that's what I did yesterday when I started to paint this one. I select the pastel and I go. And it turned out great. That was really cool. I would never ever have chosen that style if it weren't for that comment. So that's another thing. Teamwork is really important. You can do it on your own, but if you involve other people, maybe you get a 10x improvement of the growth. That wouldn't surprise me in the least. Then, next thing I've learned during this month is that with the shading, when you make a sketch, the shades are very important. And I'm an acoustician, my ears are very, very trained. Way, way above a normal person is the ability to hear things. So when you have a sound source, and then you have walking around it, and you have objects in the environment, those are going to create sound shadows. So, I mean, light and sound is quite similar. If you turn on a light, it's going to cast shadows from different objects. And if you turn on a loudspeaker, you're also going to get like sound shadows. And I kind of know how these sound shadows look like when they bend around objects with diffraction and everything. So here I could just take this knowledge that I already know about sound, and I try to paint the sound, because I know that the sound shade is going to look similar to the light. You get a little more diffraction when you're working with sound than what you get when you're doing with optics, like a painting. But it's basically the same thing. Shadows and diffraction and reflection, all those things. So that's also beauty about acquiring many different skills, is that they interconnect. So, I mean, I don't start from scratch with painting if you consider it like all the other things that I've learned in my life up until today. I can use some of this, some of that, some of this, and some of this, because there are similarities with how you construct a painting, and I can use all that experience. So that's also a reason why I am a firm believer in the incremental improvement rule. I mean, you should too. It's important to acquire new skills constantly, because I've been doing it now for many years, and it's one of the reasons is because I am very, very high in openness to experience. Like 97th, 98th percentile, if I recall it correctly, from my Big Five personality test. I'm very, very high in openness. So it's not for everybody, I know that. But for people like me who are high in openness, when you learn how to use this to your advantage, it's a really, really great skill to have, to acquire new knowledge of different fields, and then you synthesize them together and create new ideas from them. And I think that's something that I'm really good at. And I'm so grateful and so happy that I found out about this skill of mine. And I've begun to use it. Begun to use it to my advantage for at least 6 years now and running. Okay, here's the next thing that I've learned. If you're gonna do a challenge like this, or you start an education in the university, you take a course, or you start a new job, you're gonna learn how to paint, you're gonna play a musical instrument, whatever. I really regret that I didn't do a day zero painting. I should have documented the start to see how bad I was when I began, and how then the improvement in 30 days would be crystal clear. Now I don't have any reference, because the only reference I have is the first 1-minute sketch that I did. That's the day zero. But maybe I should have spent a little time to create a real image on day zero, and then I start this one. Because it's the same thing when I did my PhD, for instance. I wrote a diary about things that I've found challenging and difficult. And when you when you look back at those notes a couple of years later, and you can smile, oh, so these were my problems back then, because you've grown so much in 3 years. So you can laugh about the things that were it was your whole world back then. So document, journaling, very important. And I wish I would have done a day zero painting, but I didn't, because anyway, maybe we can look at it in a good way, because when I started this little challenge of mine, I wasn't planning on doing a whole year. I was going to do 30 days. So I said, I didn't even use a paper. I took a pencil, and then there was this letter, and I opened it, and then I flipped it around, and on the back side of it, or I used to take just some old invoice that I paid, and flip it around, and here's a white piece of paper that I can do some painting on, and then I just throw it away. So there was no planning. I just do it. And that I'm proud of, because that is so not my past self, but is beginning to become the new me, who does things instead of overanalyzing them. Get things done. Done is very imperfect. I just love that saying. Okay. Now I have another thing that I've learned. There's a lot of things, a lot of takeaways from this little exercise. 1 minute a day for a month. And all these things is stuff I've learned. So here's more. I learned that there are extremely many different techniques and styles to do painting. If you use pastel, or if you use graphite pens, or oil paintings, or watercolors, acrylic colors, I don't even know the names of them. I mean, it's like different musical instruments when you use a different brush or a different pen. If I take the guitar, or if I take the drums, I mean, you can do completely different things with them, and they're not completely interchangeable. I couldn't see that before, because I knew nothing about it. It was like, oh, you can paint, maybe you can just grab whatever and paint with it. So that's totally not true. Just because you know how to play the guitar, I mean, that doesn't mean that you can play the drums. Although it does mean that you have a slight advantage compared to someone who doesn't know any musical instrument. So that was a really important thing to learn. And then you have the tools, the pencils, the brushes, and the different techniques. But then also you can paint different styles using different tools. So even if you have, let's say you have a watercolor, you could do portraits, or you can paint landscapes. And that would be the equivalent with music. If you play the guitar, you can play death metal, or you can play country music. but you're using the same musical instrument. Or you can use different musical instruments, and perhaps certain musical instruments are better suited to a specific genre. And this is the same with painting. So that was a beautiful little connection, because I think it translates perfectly. It's the same. And here's the final thing that I've noted, that I learned from this month. And that is, this is also a thing that I quite early noted, that if you're going to paint something, it's easy that you start to paint your mental representation of the object instead of the object itself. So if I was going to paint one of my son's little toy trains, for instance, I just look at it and then I start to paint, and then instantly my mind jumps to this program, run sequence, paint a train, and I know how a train looks like. So I start to paint my mind's mental representation of a train instead of looking at the object in front of me and trying to capture that one with my pen. And this is really difficult. It's like my brain, it just snaps into autopilot straight away. And when it does, the result is not that nice. It's when you can keep this fresh, present state of mind, that you're actually drawing what you see. Those are the ones that turn out nice. And that was my little list. Yeah, see the video, it's closing in on 30 minutes here. Wow. 30 minutes. You realize I just spent almost as much time talking into this camera as I've done practicing painting and sketching. That's quite amazing. But it's fun to share. I mean, it's part of the process as well. It's like a little journey that you can follow my little journey here on to becoming an artist. Well, I say that's it for today. Thank you for listening. And I hope the best thing in the world that will make me super happy is if you become inspired and take on some similar challenge for yourself. Let me know. I would be super happy if this little experiment that I'm doing has this effect on you, because this is just an experiment. I want to test this hypothesis. How low can you go? Can you acquire a new skill in just 1 minute a day? See ya.